What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And this is MoviePass, MovieCrash, the new documentary on Max. It has audio description done by 3Play Media, so of course I was going to review it. It's about movies, and it has audio description. So, feels like it's totally within my wheelhouse. I have to admit I'm one of the few people who didn't jump in on MoviePass. I was like, this is too good to be true. This is not a sustainable. There's no way that they're doing this. They'd have to be financially backed by the industry in order for this to happen. Like, seats would have to be, basically have to be seat fillers in order for this to happen, which is what was not happening. We learned in this documentary that pretty much everybody was against them, which is sort of a shame because this model is now adopted by the theater chains. So now you can subscribe individually to the theater chains and do basically exactly what MoviePass just did, which is show up, see a movie, go home, come the next day, show up, see a movie, go home, see a movie, go home. You just can't bounce around between chains. So for people who really live close to one specific theater and wouldn't think about doing that, it kind of makes nice sweet deal for them, but MoviePass would have been the ideal situation. Listen, if your seat's empty and you can make some money from it, isn't that better? Plus they have a chance of buying concessions. So, theoretically, I understand the model, I understand the concept behind it, and after watching a documentary about people trying to talk about why this was a good idea, it's like, I get why it's a good idea, and I get why you thought people would subscribe to it, but what we didn't really explore, because nobody really wants to talk about it, is why the industry had such massive pushback to it. Because they've tried stuff like variable ticket pricing before with films where they've come out and a certain movie will cost less than everything else to try to see whether or not that'll work. Chains do certain days of the week where it's cheaper to come, and it boosts ticket sales. They pick like their slowest day of the week, like a Tuesday, and tickets are like $5, and you have, banner business. So an empty seat doesn't help them. MoviePass was actually putting butts in seats and at least getting them some money. The problem was that people weren't paying enough. So in a weird way, they had to be getting funding from somewhere else. So somewhere in between is where it probably always needed to be. It could never have happened the way that it did, where you could go see any movie anytime, one movie every day. There's one dude they interview in this movie who's like, yeah, I would go and see the Avengers, and I'd watch like 30 minutes of it, and then I'd leave, and then I'd come back, and then I'd try to watch like an hour of it like the next day, and then I'd leave, and then I'd come back and finish it the next day because I could. And I'm like, it took you 3 days to watch the Avengers? Get this dude out of my documentary. Like, what the? Fuck you, dude. Like, you're not a movie fan. Nobody goes to watch like the first 30 minutes of the event. Well, that was 30 minutes of the Avengers. It's like, man, we have such an ADD problem. If we've created that level of problem where this heavily anticipated movie, he goes for the first 30 minutes of it, and he's like, yeah, that was it. I'm maxed out. I don't know, maybe I'll be able to put it an hour tomorrow. Luckily, I have MoviePass, so I can watch this movie incrementally over the course of several days. Oh, God. So, yeah, I guess you enable people like that. That dude's an idiot. If he watches this video, I still think you're an idiot. So, yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I get the idea. There's one dude who's like, I watched Crazy Rich Asians 14 days in a row. At least to watch the whole movie 14 times. That's not that weird. I've seen people who have come religiously back to the theater like over and over. Dude, when Titanic was in theaters back in the 90s, like girls back in the day. That's why Titanic had incredible holds from when it opened all the way through, is because people would just keep going. Maybe not like 14 days like literally in a row, but I'm sure somebody did that. But yeah, I knew people who'd seen Titanic in theaters like 10, 12, 14 times easily. So yeah, they just never could let go of Jack. This is a moderately entertaining documentary, a moderately interesting documentary. Unfortunately, like most documentaries, you never get people who want to fully participate in all sides of the discussion. So there's nobody really from like a studio that wants to, like, they couldn't get Ted Sarandos to explain why Netflix didn't like MoviePass. They couldn't get, Bob Iger to explain why Disney didn't like MoviePass. Or like one of the AMC or Regal guys who ended up making their own programs. So it's just this like really limited scope focus about how this company, and it's like, I knew this company was going to fail unless they had some sort of support from the industry, because the only way that it's going to work is by this being so heavily promoted that what you end up doing is you end up having titles pushed and promoted so that instead of having every film available to you, basically you have a subscription fee, and films that are not doing as well, films that are sort of like mid-tier films, like I'll use films like nowadays, just of the films I'm talking about, films like Arthur the King, which just kind of like opened and like a little wet fart just kind of out there in the world. Most people didn't even register it had happened. Movies like Knox Goes Away could have easily been promoted on something like MoviePass to try to get people butts in the seats with Michael Keaton and Al Pacino. Things that have people in it that you recognize, where it's like, I might go see that, but I don't want to pay $12. And it's like, oh, well, if it's part of my subscription fee, and then maybe sort of like how with theaters, how like after the first 2 weeks you can use passes. If after the first 2 weeks the top titles started showing up, then it would help sort of inflate when the seats started to drop. So instead of people being able to see something like Avengers on opening weekend with MoviePass, once the seats start to open up a little bit, they can fill them again with the movie passers. So if there was a structure here that was supported by the industry, MoviePass would have been something that really could have helped a lot of films do a lot better at the box office than they did, and have done over the years. So now we have these subscription programs, and I don't know how well the subscription programs are helping, if they're helping or hurting, because when you're limited to one specific chain, if your chain isn't carrying the movie that you want to carry, if your chain is not multiplex, like if you're limited in terms of the amount of screens that you have, your theater may not have the film you want. And in a multiplex situation, like a 20-screen theater, you can go there and they've got like 5 screens of one movie, 4 screens of another movie. They don't really have 20 titles. They've got 10. So, yeah, nobody's going to want to see everything. So, that's just the way that it is. So there's a world in which this could have existed, but I knew before this. I knew when somebody told me about MoviePass, I was like, this is not a thing. This is not going to be something that sustains. So, and I was right. And then I started seeing my friends were having problems with their MoviePass cards, and I was like, yeah, I predicted this was a upstart that just failed, and you see how it fails. But you see it only from the perspective of the people willing to participate in the documentary who worked for MoviePass, and only from like their limited scope. So there's not like really a debate. It's very sort of like genial, even though some people like suggest that like it's other people's fault. Well, those people are like in the documentary and they're like, well, no, it was like these things, these factors. This is kind of what went down. There's nobody that like really. I feel like this could have been a lot more hard hitting. I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I'm looking for like a Blackberry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking for that, but in documentary form. Like, what went wrong? Like, let's go after it. Let's point it out. Let's actually analyze it. It's been a couple years. And although MoviePass is emailing me now, like, come sign up for MoviePass. I'm like, are you guys back? They promoted this. Like, I got an email from MoviePass promoting this documentary on how they failed. I was like, what the fuck is this? No one would ever do that. Check out the documentary about how I sexually assaulted people. What? Like, this documentary does not make MoviePass look awesome. It makes them look like idiots. So I don't know why they're promoting it, but I guess in that world where it's like no press is bad press, maybe that's it. I don't know. But this is exactly what you think it's going to be, except it's limited in scope. I thought it was, they seem to get a decent amount of people, of players at MoviePass. I'm not really familiar with the corporate structure, but it's not like they just kept referencing people. It wasn't like, sometimes it's really awkward when it's like, when there's a lot of people that they're referencing and clearly those people didn't want to have anything to do with the documentary. That's a little weird. This didn't feel like that. Sometimes it feels like, did you guys only get like 3 people who work for the company? And they keep referencing, like, well, Jeff told me this, and then I went to Bill, and then Bill, he was really the guy behind everything. And then I went over to Julie, and she was like, what? And then you're like, well, where are these people? Are these people in the documentary? No. It's just, it doesn't feel so much like that. It feels like everybody kind of pops in. So kudos to them for participating. But yeah, this is just like an editing thing. This isn't like a great feat of directorial achievement on a documentarian stage. I'm not sure that somebody really did a deep dive here, because it definitely doesn't feel like they really answered the question as to why the industry didn't want this. It just kind of feels like they say the industry didn't want this, but they couldn't get anybody in the industry to really quantify, or enough of the industry to quantify why they didn't want this. Like, why did they let something like this fail that makes logical sense? An empty seat does not help you. It helps nobody. It doesn't help the theater. It doesn't help the movie company. It doesn't help anybody. So even a free seat is more beneficial in some ways, because that person has the possibility to buy concessions to help the movie theater, and also has the possibility to have word of mouth, and to go out and tell other people to watch the film, instead of like no one. You know, if you have a film that's not registering at all and has no social media footprint, that's why people have free screenings of films. I knew people who had seen The Flash like a month before that movie came out and were really excited about it. Generally, people who attend those kind of screenings are people who are really excited for the film. So they're not people who are like, ugh, can't believe I'm watching this. So you get like really good word of mouth from advanced screenings. It's why they do them, because they know that giving away free tickets will benefit them in the long run because of word of mouth. Anyway, so they know that this model helps. I just don't know why they were so resistant to it. It's bizarre. And that's the documentary I want to see. I want to see the documentary from the other side. I want to see the documentary that has, I don't need anybody else from MoviePass anymore. I just need the world around it to try to convince me that MoviePass was bad for them, because I don't think it was. So yeah, anyway, that's it. The audio description on here is fine. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of people that I wasn't familiar with from 3Play, so I didn't catch their names quick enough, and by the time I went to try to rewind, it wouldn't let me rewind, so I just don't have names. But it's 3Play Media, it's documentary, it's basically talking heads, not a lot of scenery to show you. So it felt like easy audio description, and it felt like that they did an adequate job at it. There's only just so much with documentaries. As long as I can know who is talking, I feel like that's the biggest. Because a lot of times it's really hard to describe what they look like, because a lot of people are talking, and it's hard to interject with more description other than Eric. You know, like, this is Eric, President and CEO Eric Chambers. You know, something, I don't know, whatever. But yeah. So check this out if you want, but it's not going to win any awards. It's a clickbait Max documentary, so I'm fine with that. They've given me some other really terrific documentaries already this year, so If they want to make a clickbait doc, that's fine. But I'm going to give MoviePass, MovieCrash, I'm going to give it a B. I think it's okay. It's fine. I just would have liked a little bit more context to it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.